Right, so this is going to be the last practical project for a while. It is, for all intents and purposes, kind of the final project for this course, where we're going to put everything that we've learned together. Splitter nodes, layer nodes, parallel nodes, OFX nodes, everything. We're going to do a full professional grade, end-to-end, no holds barred. This is exactly what I would do to deliver this job in the real world. Okay, so we really are doing the final thing here. This is like, after this, you should be very well prepared to take on corporate work of this level. And this is quite a high-end project. This was shot on a Sony F55. I'm working on the RAW down here, but you've got transcoded DNxHR. It's more or less the same as working on this, so don't worry too much about that. We're using the same decode, you just have the watermark is all. So we've gone through this and we have a bit of a routine. We've got to, collect our stills, do our look development, all of that. So this time I'm going to dispense with that routine. I know what I'm going to do on this project. I know the direction I want it to go in. The client has been extremely clear. I'm not too bothered about going and getting stills just this once. You should have done that enough by now to have that in your head. We don't need to go over it all over again. Now, you've got two baked masters here. I've already done the conform. I've gone through and I've checked everything. You have to do the same. By now, you should be more than familiar enough with the baked master workflow. It's the simpler of the two workflows. So the first step would be to go ahead, put it through the scene cut detector, and make sure everything is up here and then ready. Once you've reached that point, then we can continue. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm just going to do my first pass in this video, second pass in the next, third pass, yada yada yada. If I'm working at a proper rate, and I am going to be doing a very intensive, very kind of high-end grade on this one, and I would very much like for you to follow along. I'd very much like for you to aim for this kind of quality, to go in to get real nice details right here. Okay? So, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get started with my primaries. Now, I'm not going to go into things like splitters, I'm not going to go into things like OFX until at least my second pass. That way, if the client comes back and wants a big direction change, I'm not that bothered because I don't have to then, redo the masks for the face refiner, for beauty work, for all of that nonsense. Like I said, we want to make sure that we get our foundation in place, and then we can go ahead and we can do the advanced work there. So this is the first phase of that. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start working. Now, in a project like this, pretty much every angle is different. We have maybe two from the same setup there, but we're not going to get a lot of mileage out of groups. We are not going to get a lot of mileage out of copying and pasting grades. It's going to be a very manual grade, which is great. Which is great. Got a bit of a crumb in my throat. Which is great. Which is really good for our kind of, in inverted commas, final project. So, let's get started. Because I like this shot, or maybe I like this one. That was behind a window, that'll be harder to do. Let's take another look around. Okay, to settle the overall tone of this project, this is the shot. I like this. This is going to be my champion shot for now. We've got a nice yellow jacket. I want to be careful that the skin does not go too yellow. We've got a bit of a yellowish highlight on the left-hand side here. I'm going to want to keep an eye on that. Let's see how she moves. Nope, that's fine. We've got a nice kind of slow-mo looking off to one side. The face refiner should be okay with that later, but we'll worry about that later. Let's get started on this shot. So I'm going to do my basic primaries. Now I've got a little bit of, if I just turn up my graticule over here, I've got a little bit of a specular highlight here. I'm not going to let that hold me back. If you would look closely, you can see that that specular highlight is actually this white spot up here. I'm not too bothered about clipping that out. What I want is quite a nice dramatic look. And I want to get nice contrast between the mids and the highlights, because then we really bring out the model on that side of the face. I don't want this side of the face to be too dark, so maybe I need to bring the mids up a little bit again. And I might just tweak this finely with the curve. I like the idea of this being quite dark, but I don't want the face to go too dark, so I just need to be careful there. Okay, that looks good for contrast. Now at this point you can do your saturation and primary balance on the same node, or alternatively you can make a new node, as always. So now we're going to take a look at our saturation. And this is looking pretty good from the off. A little bit of pink and magenta in the skin that we need to sort out. The eyes are a bit dull. We'll need to sort that out as well. Got some noise in the shadows, and this over here, the blue is okay, it's not quite right, and I'm not sure I like this greeny cyan thing in the background down here. So what we will do, and also I've got a bit of a red spill on the jacket. I want this jacket to be a nice uniform yellow colour, and you can guess how we're going to do that, having gone over the colour compressor before. But again, all second pass stuff. This is a good set of primaries. I'm now going to move into my secondary work. And I think I'm going to set up a layer mixer. Set up at least 2 of those. I'm going to say 3 layers. So what I want to do on this layer mixer, I want the skin in one node, the jacket in another, and then the background outside. I definitely want to try and preserve the white of this shirt. I don't want this to go blue. So I'm going to do a very typical kind of blue and yellow contrast, blue and yellow color contrast look. This is not a million miles away from what we did right back at the beginning in PC01, except now we're going to be using all of our professional tools. We're really going to be drilling this kind of professional practice into ourselves with this. So first node, I'm going to want the skin. So let's see how close we can get. Okay. Okay, and I've already got some green pollution there. Okay. So it doesn't look like I will be able to separate the jacket and the skin out with one single secondary. So what I think I must do is do a bit of light roto on the face. So let's just go and see how we are. Okay, let's... And we'll up the denoise a bit as well. Okay, I just want to be careful of losing the side of her face as she turns back. Let's see what I can do. Okay. No. If I do that, I get a halo, which I want to avoid. Let's put it back to closing. And this is basically the alpha shrink and grow, but on a single clip. I'm not I'm not combining multiple mats here. What am I doing? Put that back on closing. Okay, bit of chatter down here, but because we're not too bothered about that in this node, that's a reasonably good skin key. Okay, that ain't gonna work. So this is a reasonably good key, and we just want to be careful. Also, it's cut out the shirt. We've got a bit of stuff in here we want to take care of, but other than that, it's okay. What I want to do now is a bit of light roto. And I want to keep predominantly the face. In here, and I'm just going to need to do a little bit of... No, let's just find where it deviates. It's about here it begins to deviate. I'm going to add a dynamic keyframe, and then just going to keep that, make sure we haven't cut out the neck there as well, that's quite important. And then go back and fix it at the end. Also, this is going to have the pleasant side effect of sorting out that green quality of the hair over there, which is not ideal. So now let's just go through and we have our skin key. Maybe there's a little bit of a halo there. Oh, what am I doing? And we can just fix that a little bit. There we go. Cool, so I've now got my face here. And now what I want is the jacket. So I'm now going to get a key for the jacket. And we can cheat the jacket a little bit just by feeding the alpha of the face into there and then inverting the node. So obviously the face gets cut out and then I'm just keeping the jacket. I'm doing this because I want the jacket to be very uniform in yellow, and obviously when I'm using the face refiner, when I'm fixing the skin, I want to maintain that ideal 3 zones of color on the face of this actress. So I don't want everything to be hit by the same correction here. Now I clearly have a lot of work to do to fix this, so let's just get this sorted. Clean black, clean white, blur. There we go. We do have a bit of the skin of her chest in there, which I do want to watch out for. Maybe I'm going to pull a node on that and remove it, so I need to take care of these noisy bits here. Okay. Tell you what I'm going to do, if I shrink and then I bring the white clip down. And I want to avoid a halo. No, that's no good. Tell you what I might do. I might just cut a big loose mat out there. Being careful not to lose any of the costume I'm working on. Cool. Okay, and then there we go. Oops, what am I doing? And then, so we've got a little bit of chatter to take care of in there. It's mostly in the shadows, so let's just see what we can do to fix that chatter. Bring up the denoise. Little bit of chatter. Now that I've hard matted around the other things, I don't need to worry about that too much. A little bit of chatter down there, but we're not going to hit the shadows too much with this. Cool. So now we've got our layer node set up. Now, of course, we're going to remember that when we do this, everything appears on top of what is beneath, so that allows me to set up a very nice color contrast, color separation look, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I need to be careful with this. I need to not hit the white shirt here. That is important, because if something that is definitely white is made to be blue, then obviously that gives us away. So the key on this kind of look is to make sure that everything else gets a nice healthy tint, but, you know, neutral whites, neutral colors, blacks, whites maintain their neutrality whilst we still lean into the kind of blue versus yellow look here. So I've now got my face, I've got my jacket. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set my background, see what I can get. So let's just pull the mids down to blue. Now I already like the effect that's having. I like this very kind of uniform blue effect over here. And I might just pull the saturation down a little bit. What I want to do is maintain neutrality in my shadows, so my good old cheaty friend LumVsat can be used to ensure that quite easily and quite practically. Of course, we now have to be careful of the shirt here, so what I am going to do, you guessed it, there's a lot of this in this kind of grading when we do this kind of detailed work. We just want to go in and get little details absolutely right. You know, client is paying me full day's work for 2 minutes of footage. I'm going to put a lot of time into that to get every detail just so. Cool. So now we have neutral white shirt, we have blue. That blue adjustment has gone away, has gone a ways towards dealing with that kind of weird green patch in the background, which I didn't like. So that's quite cool. So let's just see what we can do here. Let's get get the good old parade back up and make sure, that's more like it, that we are maintaining neutral blacks, neutral whites. I mean, these are a bit blown out. They're going to stay white regardless, which is helpful because it gives us a nice kind of reference point. We might take a look at bringing those down in a second. So I'm pretty happy with that. For the time being in skin, I am really just going to play up the saturation a little bit and maybe try and counteract some of the yellow, some of the green in here. So maybe I'll just rotate the, there you go. You see how this yellow cast has been dealt with? Now, we require a subtle touch here. I still want to maintain variation on the skin tones, but we can already see the effect that that's having. So I'm just going to fix that there, and I'm careful of making it look too homogeneous, but now we have a slight yellow tinge back there. Hair is still a little bit green. There we go, hair's more blonde now. Little touch of magenta in the cheeks and in the lips possibly. Let's take a look at the vector scope. Yeah, so if I zoom in on the vector scope, you can see how we're getting little bits going past red towards magenta, so I'm just going to want to take this here and I just want to squidge that down very, very slightly. And you see how those little things, which were magenta, now I want to be careful not to introduce kind of noise in the hue here. But you can see how in particular it was the lips that are being hit by this, and we just want a nice kind of primary red there, and I want to leave these hues more or less alone. These are ideal skin hues, they're right on the eye line. I don't want to fudge with those too much. So now it's a subtle difference, but it's a good one. That green is gone, that magenta is gone. That's now a much healthier looking skin. Little homogeneous, we're going to fix that with the face tracker later on, don't you worry. Next step is sorting out this jacket. So let's take a look here. So I want to take a look at the hues I've got, and okay, we've got a bit of green, not too bothered about that. We've got some red, I don't want red in this jacket. We've got an orange spill down here, need to be careful of the skin. May go back in the second pass, see if I can refine that out of this key, but for now we are okay. A little bit of white shirt in here. I want to be careful with my highlights so that doesn't go like banana coloured. Bit green over here. So let's just do what we can with the primaries first. And I just want to go over there. And that's getting more like it. I'm going to bang up the saturation. I want this jacket to be quite colourful. I don't want it to be distracting. This is probably a little bit too much, but what I'm going to say is maybe about there. I want this very kind of opulent, kind of expensive looking gold colour to be the trademark for this character in this project, so I'm going with this kind of very strong colour. Got a bit of pilly-wally greenish, greyish stuff going on here, and what I might do is add another input. Oh, you know what? I'm doing that the stupid way. There we go. Shortcuts. What I can do is cheat, because I've already got a perfectly good key pulled on that jacket, haven't I? So I can just feed the alpha in from there, mat it out, and then track it. Got a little bit of black noise, but because we're not going to be hitting the shadows too much here, it doesn't matter. I will, however, endeavour to mat out that skin, because that's just going to get more complicated later on if I let it. So now we got this kind of pilly-wally. So now we've got this bit down here. Let's see if we can fix this kind of off greenish yellow thing. So, and we don't want it to be too aggressive, like they've got the kind of glowing shadows there. So let's just bring that down with a bit of hue v saturation. Lim versus sat, I beg your pardon. We don't want it to look like charcoal either, but there we go. So here now you can see the difference that's made. We do need to watch out about the effect it's having on this shirt here, so let's just take a look. Maybe just make it a little bit less obvious. And we can come back and we'll fix that in the second pass. Now I'm going to change the colours of these nodes here. I'm going to go to node colour, and I'm going to make it yellow, and I'm going to put yellow node colours on things that I have to address, because this is a much more advanced form of grading. I need to keep track of everything. Now it's not enough for me just to go, oh okay, I'm going to fix that later. I need to keep a record of this. So right click, node colour, and choose. Anything that with yellow on it's going to need a tweak for the second pass. So I know what I'm doing later on. For now, this is okay. Maybe a little bit of an error with the hair there. It's up for argument as to how significant that is. We could probably polish it off in the second or third pass. This is a pretty good start now. It's a nice look. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a new stills album. I'm going to grab a still, and we'll call this one and we'll put an A in there as well. There we go. So actress first pass, and this is a nice look. I'm happy with this as a general look for the whole project. We're now just going to go through, get things in more or less the right place. There's more to be done. There's vignetting, there's face refining, bit of beauty work on here. Going to use the color compressor to make sure everything here is okay, because there's still a bit of weird oranginess here. But I'm going to make sure that that's all alright later on. That's all second pass stuff. So for first pass, this is fine, this is good. So what we need to do now is go ahead and instate this look on everything else. So we're about 25 minutes in, more or less, and excuse me, we've done one shot, which is welcome to a high-end grade. It takes a while to get right. So we're now going to go through and match everything up. It's probably not going to take as long per shot to get there, because everything shot under these circumstances is going to have a slight variation of this particular node structure going on. You'll notice that I haven't gone ahead and made a compound node yet, and that's because I know I'm going to come back relatively soon and start tweaking all of these individual things. I'll put those into compound nodes during the second pass so we can keep things organized, because then we're going to get a lot more complicated with like OFX trees over here later on. But for now, it's not going to help me to make this a compound node, because it's easy for me to navigate this node tree already anyway. So let's keep moving. Let's go back and let's get this guy in more or less the right place. So same thing. Got a bit of green in the beard. Probably an artifact. It's a lens artifact from the super bright light, most likely. A little bit of clipping over here. I can probably bring that down with the curve. I'm alright with that for now in first pass. I might bring that down with the curve later on. Green is my big problem here. Green doesn't belong in this look. We want blue and yellow. So, nice and dramatic. We'll do a little bit of basic color adjustment here. We're not going to go crazy. That is dramatic, but doesn't fit. So, tiny little bit of clipping or crushing in those shadows maybe. And I like that kind of distribution of contrast we've got going on. You can see that copying things across ain't going to work, so we need to do this one from scratch. So that's a nice bit of contrast, a little bit of basic color balance. Now we're going to do our saturation, our primary balance, make sure it's okay. So that's getting in more or less the right direction. This green is still a problem, but we can fix that now. So looking at this, I would not expect to need more than 2 layers, so let's just do that. Because I've only really got skin and background here. It may be that I need to do something about the white shirt, but I can make a new one. In fact, I've made 3. I'll see if I need this third one later on. In fact, no, you know what? I'll get rid of that. Because it'll just block everything out otherwise. So, secondary. And it's a familiar song and dance by now. And there's quite a bit of magenta blue in here. We can see quite a strong magenta blue cast. We can fix all of that. .75 is a bit high for a clean. We're going to need some closing here. Okay, that's looking all right. We've got a little bit of an issue with his hair. His hair might turn blue if we're not careful, although it is naturally quite dark, so if we keep our shadows neutral, his hair shouldn't go blue. This is something that's very difficult to avoid with this kind of look sometimes. You want to make sure that your hair is not going blue. Let's just see. There we go. We've got that part there. Just need to do a bit of basic garbage matting, I think. Okay, we've got a bit of a problem here. So let's take a good look at this. So this little noisy bit here, I'm going to node color, I'm going to make that orange because I can't have that, but we'll see how far it gets. So let's just leave this for now. In the second pass we can come back and refine this, and we will get back to our... Because I'm not actually nudging the background that much on this one, that might not be too much of a problem. It depends on what I do to the skin and the actual skin qualification. Okay, and that's kind of homogenized it, made it look a bit bluer, which is nice. We're not getting too much blue interference up there. Let's just... Now I need to be careful here, because otherwise I get a really obvious separation. but that's got a nice warm quality, and the mask there is cutting into the hand. So let's just put a little bit of tracking on that. There we go. Okay, one thing I might do if we've got some green in here, I'm not too keen on that green flare. Don't want to interfere with the skin too much. That's not really responding. Might just rotate that up a little bit, make it a bit more orange as opposed to green, and that'll gel in with the skin tones. Okay, cool. So I might just blur that out a little bit more and soften up the edges between the skin and the surroundings. Okay, that's pretty good. That's in keeping with the general theme. Let's just make sure we have the right kind of blue. Okay, I want it a little bit more cyan than it currently is. There we go. That's more like it. Now I've got a very good match for the shade of blue. So I'm keeping that blue throughout. Obviously their skin is different and he's in different lighting conditions. A little bit of yellow and green on the beard, so let's just... yeah. That's more like it. There we go. That's fixed the kind of yellow on the beard issue. This here isn't as yellow as it was, which is good. So he's got nice, healthy looking skin. If I can just take a quick look at the vector scope. I've got a little bit of purple blue there, what I might be able to do with that. No, it's not responding, that's okay. I'm okay with that reflection in his glasses anyway. Okay, that's good. I think that's okay. I would go ahead and I would downgrade that alert to yellow, actually, because I'm not getting problems. In fact, that's just the red light of the car behind, so that's okay. So I think that's alright, so we can move on to the next shot now. So this one, going to be fairly simple. We're just going to try and retain some of the golden details here, but most of it is going to be blue. Let's get back to our parade. Get our basic balance sorted. And obviously we want to keep that kind of contrast feel throughout. I'm going to bring this down with a curve. I'm kind of okay with these lights. I don't know, when I come back in second pass, I think I'll make a decision about these very bright lights. And this blown out bit, these might be distracting, actually. But that's a second pass problem. Okay, maybe I might just blow a little bit out in the clouds there deliberately and keep that kind of look. Now, this shot is going to be a relatively simple version of this look. There's no real complicated skin. We're just going to keep these yellowy bits. We're going to make everything else a bit bluer. Hopefully not steamroll this tree, but we'll see how that goes. So, you know the routine by now? I'm actually going to dial this in entirely by hand. I don't want to get the tree in there. I would ideally like to avoid getting the speculas in there as well. And that's all we're going to do there. I'm actually going to buff these up a little bit. They're a little bit lemon yellow for me, so I'm going to make them slightly more orange. Let's get the vector scope out and see what we're doing. And then here, we're going to do the same kind of steely blue. And that's already pretty close, maybe just a little bit more punch there. There we go. And you can see how we're keeping the same colour scheme, the same colour language present throughout. I'm definitely going to try and fix that chest kind of skin there later. Okay, and I might just... yeah, that's more like it. I just need to salvage those highlights a little bit more. Coolio. Excellent. Right, so now we're going from here to here, maybe still a bit bright. Tell you what we'll do. I'll take a look at neighbor clips. So this one still a little bit darker. Still a little bit more blue, and then let's take a look. Okay, maybe that one needs a little bit of a boost. Cool. Okay, I'm happy with that for first pass. This one I'm going to do a bit of vignetting and tracking. I'm going to kind of bring the car out of the background a little bit, but for now that's fine. I might do something to the green leaves, but in first pass that's more than okay, and we can now move on. So I'm just going to keep going. You're free to watch if you like. I'm going to record the whole process, but I'm just going to keep going until I've finally got my first pass done. Right, this one's going to be a bit more of a challenge, because the colours of the jacket and the skin are not as distinct as in other shots, so we're going to have to do a little bit of work here, so let's get to it. Okay, that's a reasonable pass at colour balance. Let's just whack up the saturation. Cool. So we've got a few challenges to take into consideration here. So the skin and the jacket are naturally much darker in this image, and that can make them look a little bit odd. If we make the skin and the jacket quite saturated, very dark saturated colours can look a bit odd, especially in skin tones and costume. I'd say the jacket's actually looking pretty good by itself here. The skin's too pink, and we just want to be very careful about the kind of qualities that it takes on, but I still need to separate out the background. I'm not too happy about these kind of green flares either, so we'll see if we can make those a bit blue and kind of get a bit more of a homogenized image. So let's just see what we can do with the jacket and the skin. Ooh, hey, look at that. This is going to be fun. Now, she doesn't actually move that much, so I can probably do some tracking here to help out. Okay, right, so because they're very desaturated shadows, we have almost every single colour in there. Right, let's just see how far that gets us. It might be that we do a bit of roto masking here. Some weird teal cyan stuff going on in that background as well. Right, let's see what we get. Actually, no, hang on. Putting that in the wrong node. Right. Yeah, so I'm going to have to do some masking here. Well, let's get the blue sorted first and we'll worry about that in a second. Do a little bit of a log adjustment there. Okay, that's looking like a pretty good match, but obviously we have problems back here. So I'm actually going to say that the main way of dealing with this is going to be roto, so I'm just going to have to cut the actress out and just track her. And that's looking reasonable. We'll go back and we'll fix this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a cyan flag on this one, so I'm going to have to come back and do some manual keyframing later on, but for now and when we rotoscope we often break things down into their kind of masses. We don't just draw around the edge of something in one big super complex shape. And this is going to take a bit of time to get right in the final pass, but we'll leave it till then. And we just want to be careful of these little bits inside the fingers can give us away, so but we'll come back and fix this later on. This is starting to look alright, and I'll just get the face. I'll have to do a little thing for the gap in the center there, but I'll get that. And that needs a bit of keyframing, but we're not too bothered about that just now. Last thing I'm going to do and then let's just make sure that we have the overlap we need for this to Cool. So that's good enough for now. We'll fix that. We've got our cyan flag on it for later. I am just going to kill the saturation in the reds very slightly there, bring the skin back under control because the skin's a little bit fierce. There's still some things we have to finalise, but we'll do that later on. So this is otherwise looking alright for first pass, that's fine, and we can move on. So we've got one of these, and I wonder... Yeah, we can get a reasonable way by copying and pasting, but we're going to have to change quite a few things. May as well do that from scratch. Let's just take a look through some of these. If I do this, but if I get rid of the... In fact, I only need one of these, don't I? Let's see if I can just make this key any better. Okay, now this is the other side of her face, so we don't get the yellow reflection, but it still does seem a little bit incongruous. There's a blue smudge, like some kind of blue reflection, down here that is not ideal. And maybe... Okay, yeah, bits of her hair are a little green, so what we can try and do... That's saturation, not what I want. There we go. Okay, still want that. Okay, we've now fixed the hair back there. The background is fine. I like the contrast of it all. Got a bit of a blue smudge down there. We'll come back to that in second pass. Make a yellow node there. Then we can put the face refiner on this and kind of get a bit more variety back into that skin because it's a little bit homogeneous at the moment. Okay, cool. Can move on. That's my phone. This should be fairly simple. All I need to do is get rid of all of these, because there is no yellow in this one. And then it's just a simple matter making sure I don't have an interfering power window. Whenever you're copying and pasting looks, be careful for kind of errant power windows getting in the way, because you can copy them over by accident, not meaning to. Maybe give it a bit more and kill the highlights slightly. Cool, there we go. That one's dead easy. This one, I can also do something similar. Like, this guy doesn't have to be orange because it's a very strong, stylized kind of lighting here. I can get away with quite a blue look, but we'll come back to that later on. This is going to be largely a window tracked up here. This dead easy. Just make that a little bit more dramatic looking. This, again, no people. That's, however, massively blown out. this similar. Oh, I like that already. Just kill the saturation slightly. There we go. Got that nice kind of steely blue. So we have quite a few very simple shots of like just the car, and these are quite easy to get right. It's the ones featuring the actors, which is a challenge. And we've got drone footage here. This is a transcode of something. These are 422LT. These were probably DSLRs in that case. Of course, you've got just DNxHR, but that's fine. I've not changed the decode for any of this. We have a bit of a scene change back here. Nothing we can't handle, and then a really nice shot. Going to be really good for the face refiner. Right, back to it. So, low-hanging fruit, let's go through and start to get all of this in place. Just needs shadows a little more neutral. Cool. I like that, but it's a little bit too dark. There's always a few you can just do this with, get away by cheating it a little bit. And then this is a bit more intensive. That I like, he's quite readable. We just need a bit of there we go. That's going to need some noise reduction, as we can see down there. That's fine, we'll do NR in the third pass as usual. So this is taking shape. All of these little kind of cutaway shots of the car itself. Very easy to deal with. That'll have a bit of a mask in it. I might just add a bit more colour. I like the kind of shine in the blue there. This guy's back, just need to be careful with him. What's going on here? That should take that fairly well. I like that, but they're a little bit strong, so let's just bring that down. And we might just make that a touch more dramatic. I don't like this weird neon blue thing here, so I'm going to pull the saturation out of my highlights a smidge. Ooh, that's a still. That's Ken Burns. Stills are always super obvious. Cool. Excellent. Right, we'll save. This is coming in good shape. Again, even on a high-end grade, you do what is necessary. You don't just pile node after node after node on there if there's no benefit in doing so. I might add a bit of a glow to this, kind of like a kind of dreamy screen blur kind of effect. We'll see. Don't want to do that for just one shot. Don't want it to kind of go too far out, so we're just going to continue with our first pass, and it's mostly all this kind of thing now. Okay, that one's going to be a challenge. But that's fine. This one's going to be difficult. Let's leave that till later. Okay, let's continue. So this one, we can pull a secondary up here and use a window to help eliminate any possible spill or reflection or whatever on the bonnet of the car. So that's fairly easy. We'll just whack up the saturation a little bit. Excuse me. Should just need one layer for this one. So then what we will do, and we can just track that in. Okay, we'll avoid the reflection on the bonnet. Excuse me, it's that time of year. And we'll just denoise it a bit over there as well. So then we know what we're doing. Got a little bit of issue down there, but we can fix that. So just want to make sure I can get this contrast right. Got that nice kind of dramatic contrast that we need to get sorted. That's more like it. That looks like a pretty solid match. Right, let's take a look at this key then. Always does to be accurate with these things. Right. Okay, cool, that looks pretty good. So in this one, that's already looking alright. I might just nudge it towards orange a little bit. Okay, that's looking good, and I might just make it a little bit more dramatic. There we go. So that's fine. I'm going to come back to this one later. Okay, this one looks like a bit of work. This one should respond fairly well to the previous grade. That is absolutely fine. That's alright too. Let's just, we shouldn't be so red though. Let's get the vector scope. Yeah, that's a bit north of the eye line. That is more like it. And we still have bits of red for the lip as well. That's good. Okay, that's mostly good. A little bit of reflection on the jacket there. Let's just check that. Okay, a little bit of chatter, but it's in a shadow and therefore invisible. Well, in a very dark shadow and therefore invisible. I like this thing down here. Right. That's pretty good for first pass. Let's see, tell you what, I'll take a still of this one because it's... Okay, that needs a little bit more colour now that I look at it. There we go. Cool, so we'll take a still. Okay, that is already looking pretty good. Now we have some weird red blushing down here and some of it is very yellow. We'll fix that in second pass, but we might just need to fix this little red splotch and there might be a bit of reflection on that shirt. That shirt's looking a touch blue, but maybe we can fix that. With log wheels, and that brings it down to being a bit more neutral actually, which is pretty good. Okay, so we are getting there, as you can see. Those keys are excellent, but that contrast is awful. Right. And you can see we now have a fairly decent template from which to work. And we're getting there for first pass. That's fine. This I recognise from earlier. And I said this would be entirely manual earlier, didn't I? Never take me too seriously. Now, the truth is, that's always what you think. You see something like this and you think, oh, I can't carry any of this work over, this is going to take ages. And then suddenly you just go, oh, let's just try it. And then before you know it. Right, this is really coming along. We've got a really nice look. Okay, he's looking a little pink in the... Is that outside completely blown out for real? Pretty much. There we go. Let's just make him a little bit yellower. Cool. Okay, I remember this one being difficult before. A little bit of imperfection in there, but it might not be too significant. We'll go back in second pass and play it through and check. There we go. I like the kind of neon quality of those lights, but I think we're a little bit too blown out here. Let's see what we can do and bring that back down with a curve. Okay, excellent. That's good. That obviously needs to be brought down a little bit. I might just bring up the blue back here a little bit more. There we go. I might just kill the highlights slightly. It gets us more into the kind of general feel of it. Okay, that one's going to take some work. Now that jacket is completely the wrong colour from last time, so we're going to have to fix that. Might have to roto out the face to separate it out from that jacket if they're both skin coloured. So, bring those shadows down. Going to even out some of the sky. I need to watch out for that bit of spill there, so I'm going to put a yellow flag on this clip, because I know that it needs work. I'm going to say for now that's okay. It's going to take quite a while to fix that, so I will come back to it later. Same is also true of that one. In fact, that one's cleaner, but we're going to have to do a bit of work there to fix the yellow jacket, because obviously in the very next shot it's this kind of golden yellow colour. So these shots, obviously we're not going to make them blue and yellow. We're just going to bring them out a little bit. And make them pop, and that's all we can do. That's absolutely fine. These are probably going to stay just one node, and that's absolutely okay. Like I said before, we do what is necessary. We don't just pile stuff onto the grade for no reason. Okay, and we are approaching this. Excuse me. Okay, let's make a better job of this. Okay. Okay, this one's going to take a bit more effort. I will tell you what I'm going to do in that case. I'm going to set up a key mixer structure to feed into the alpha of that node. If we remember, key mixers allow us to combine two or more alpha channels together into one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull two keys and put them together to get a more accurate qualification of the leather on this steering wheel than I could with just one key on this node. So we will start. Okay, and that's the first bit. Now this one. You see how we're now combining these two keys together to get a much stronger There we go, so now we have a much stronger key all around. There's a little bit of an issue down there. So I'm just going to expand this. And I'm going to expand this as well. Grow. There we go, and now we have a nice separation between the blue detail out here and this yellow leather. So what we did here, and if you've made it this far, you're doing very well, is we've taken a key from two different nodes, we've used a key mixer, and we put it into the top layer in our layer mixer, so that we can then have a single node with a single set of corrections act upon multiple alpha channels at once. And it's quite a common technique to use, especially in difficult points like this, where you can't get one perfect key. We have to combine keys. Now we just have to make sure... What in the world? Oh, right. And make sure you don't have any accidental keyframing on. Otherwise that happens. It's very easy to forget. That must be in the stock I've been copying over, so I need to be very careful about that. Yeah, I've left auto keyframing on corrector 5 in the stock. That's a bit of a rookie mistake. Okay. Right, this one doesn't need the same treatment. I think I'm literally just going to leave that as it is. There's a little bit of yellow there, but there's nothing really naturally yellow in there, apart from maybe this thing. Yeah. And then that's fine. So we're getting towards the end of our first pass now. These are going to be more of a challenge, and it's not gonna have the same kind of ultra moody style of look, but we're gonna have to carry the kind of bluishness along with everything else. We just have to keep a kind of a blue tint to things. We're not going to get this kind of blue yellow, this kind of very specific blue yellow color scheme going on. This is going to need quite a lot of work. It's going to probably need keyframing, and this is going to be a lot of work to fix, but we'll do that in the second pass. Right, so we have... that's another one of these. That's also another one of these. Ugh. Actually, that looks like a proxy the client sent by mistake, because this is the same angle, but this one's DNX and this one's RAW. Not that it makes any difference to you, you've got all DNX. Because I had to transcode it first to get the watermark in. Okay, this is really coming along. Okay, let's see how far we get with this one. Okay, that'll be a good start. I'll still come back to it later. How's this one going? He's a very pink person over there. Let's see if we can fix this. There we go. Right, he's obviously gone super pink, so what we have to do... There we go, and I'm just going to kill the saturation a bit so his... And it's a little bit bright, that one. Okay, that looks like a decent match. Cool. Oh, that's a transcode. Okay, that one's going to be a bit more work. We are nevertheless getting closer and closer. Right, let's get started on some of these drone shots. It's just going to be fairly simple blue tint. There's nothing warm to worry about. We can't make out the drivers. So just a bit of a cool tint. It looks going to be fine here. We do want to preserve whites and blacks if we can, though. There we go. Same thing here. Now this is already blown out. That's my doorbell. This one was already blown out by the time it reached us, but we can do a lot better than crush the shadows down too far. Yeah, it isn't going to work, but... No, okay, fair enough. Well, one's log and the other's, well, different kind of log by the looks of it. Could just be Rec 709 in video, as opposed to data. Nah. Now this thing in the highlight up here needs a bit of doing, but I'll do that in another node. Okay, cool. Okay, that's also pretty nice. I just need to be careful with that. Okay, right, nearly there now. That's a bit dark. Okay, that'll need a bit more work. There we go. Okay, this should be fairly simple. Just make sure we give it a bit more light and then we can whack up the saturation. I am going to bring this down a little bit so it's not overbearing. Excellent, that's still keeping our kind of blue and yellow. Again, these shots are relatively simple, don't need huge amounts of work, don't need to stack up so many nodes. Okay, this is going to be a challenge. Let's just go through anything else I've been doing first. That's a little bit too strong, but we'll bring it back down. There we go. You can always spot us still, because the noise stops. Counterintuitively making this one more neutral. That's just so I can work with it to begin with. Haven't really done much with parallels on this project. Ugh. Ugh. Okay. Okay, let's see if I denoise that a little bit more. Right, we'll have to see how well that responds. Okay, that seems alright. Good enough for first pass. Okay, this one. So now those keys appear good, but we'll see when we get all this sorted. I'll have to change how red he is just a little bit. There we go. Let's make sure the boss man isn't too yellow either. I have no idea who this is, but he looks important, so... It's funny the things you end up not knowing about a client when you're working on a project. Like I to this day, do not know what this company does. Like my client, which is a facility in Belfast, sent this over, said, Matt, grade this for us, here's the brief. I'm like, okay, but I have no idea what these people do or who they are. Okay, that actually looks pretty stable to me. Right, what I will do is I will tame this little blown out bit up here with a curve. There we go. Excellent. Now I don't have anything yet, so that ain't going to work, obviously. So in order to get this match correct, okay, the blue's a little bit saturated here, so I might just steal it down, make it look a little bit more steely. That's cool. Right, this is going to be fun. There's this, and then what? Okay, outside, and then through the window. Ugh. Okay, contrast is pretty good there, I think. Might just be a matter of two primary nodes. Let's take a look. That's looking pretty close. Might just bring the mids up slightly and balance that by bringing the shadows down a bit more. This green's very strong, I'll bring that down in a second. There we go. That's pretty good. That shadow is a bit... Tell you what I need to do then, I need to just tweak that with curves. Okay, it's a little bit misty looking. I'm gonna have to, I think, use log curves here. And just a little bit less saturation. And a little bit more towards cyan. There we go. There to there. Okay, that's a fairly good match. We'll finesse that a bit more in second pass, but that's pretty much done. Excuse me. So now, right, just a few more shots to go and then we're done. That might be looking a little bit cyan, actually. I'll just switch it to blue and tone it down a little. There we go. Okay, these shots, which don't fit in with anything else we've done. Okay, why are these in the edit? So we're just going to have to add a bit of a cool tint, but maintain maybe a little bit of warmth in the highlights, make it look a bit sunny, but with a very slightly stylized cool tint. Let's just see what we can do with this. Cool. So I'm actually going to want to warm up my highlights a little bit, and then I think I'd probably like to preserve the greens a little bit as well. Actually, no, you know what? That's the wrong way of doing that. Just do it the way we've done all the way through. With layers. There we go. Let's just make sure we don't get any awkward... Actually, that one's okay. Don't get any nonsense in the grill there. Okay, and that's actually looking like a pretty good fit for everything else. Might just have to take a closer look at some of that. Actually, it's only a highlight that's missing, so that should be okay. But we can fix all that in the second pass. Right. Excellent. So we've now reached the end of first pass here. With the exception of this one shot, obviously. Let's fix this. That's going to be quite a lot of work there. So I'll just get this. I'll tell you what. That's looking all right. Right, so this is the end of our first pass for real this time. So yeah, we've got it in a fairly good place. It's looking good already for the most part. We're going to go through in the second pass. We're going to do all of our lightbox, all of our effects that we were talking about before. We're going to do beauty work on the skin. We're going to do face refinement. Excuse me. We're going to use the color compressor in places to keep this jacket under control. We're probably going to end up using the color compressor here to cheat the jacket. This might be this will be difficult to do properly. We're just going to have to take a look at that, see how far we can get. Then we're going to go through, sort out any other skin tone and face issues throughout. We're going to do vignetting, face tracking, all that good stuff. So it's all the kind of proper second pass stuff that we're used to. So that's it for the first pass on this one, and click on through to the next presentation once you're ready.